What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Andre Drummond's claims that he is the best, or will go down as the best rebounder ever by the time he retires. We're also going to talk about the offseason work of Ayo Dosunmu, where his stats kind of set in as a starter to end the season last season, where we can see some improvement by his offseason work, things like that. We'll talk about all that and more on today's Chicago Bulls Central.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans, I'm not even gonna lie to you, right? You guys know I'm transparent here. I don't like I don't cover things up. It's a slow news period for the Chicago Bulls, as in the NBA as a whole, right? I think we were all building up to that NBA schedule being released. Once that was released, it's kind of just, until training camp opens, it's probably going to be pretty quiet. Now, there are still some marquee free agents out there. There are still some deals other teams could do, but the Chicago Bulls are pretty much set right now. I don't see them making any type of trades, any type of big major moves until the trade deadline. They're really going to take a look at this team and see what they have with it before they really make any decisions. So even Tony Bradley, things like that, I don't see any type of movement coming for the Chicago Bulls, and it may not even come by the trade deadline, depending on how certain players play. So it's just the biggest thing that we have, the biggest two pieces of news that we're kind of waiting on first for the Chicago Bulls are what's Lonzo Ball's status for the start of the season. Expect to see that. I've been saying probably in training camp when that starts is probably when that determination will be made. So look for between the start to about a week or maybe even 2 weeks into training camp starting is when we'll get a definitive answer on what's going on with Lonzo Ball as far as his injury, things like that. So we'll see. But again, don't expect anything significant up until that point. And then what is the rotation going to look like? Who's getting minutes, right? How is Marco going to actually be on the NBA roster? Is he going back down to the G League? What's going on with Dalen Terry? What type of minutes? How does he show up in training camp? Does he impress the coaches enough to get in the rotation early? He's had a big offseason as well. But other than that, everything's kind of just part of the course for the Chicago Bulls, right? We know who our starting lineup is going to be. There's no battles there. We're pretty much, for the most part, know who's going to get minutes off this bench. What the balance of those minutes are the things that we're going to see. We're not going to have that determination until the preseason, and maybe not until the start of the actual season. Just they're going to use that preseason to determine that. So it's not really a lot of even potential news that can come down with the Chicago Bulls. So with that being said, we're kind of just in a, I don't want to call it a lull, but a waiting period, right? We know what the things that we're waiting on. We know what we're hoping to see and what we need to hear from this team. But any rumors like the Duncan Robinson for Nikola Vucevic rumor, all that, it's all just noise. It's all just writers really trying to find their in and find something to write about over this lull period of the NBA offseason. But we do got something. Andre Drummond gave us a quote. He did say that he feels like he's going to go down as the best rebounder in NBA history when he retires. Now, we've broke down the numbers. As far as him, he's 10th all time, I believe, at rebounds per game. Overall number of rebounds for his career, he's like 46. And Andre Drummond only 29 years old. If he can play another 4 to 5 years, he can probably get up to, right now he's right under 10,000 overall rebounds for his career. So he can probably get up into the 13,000 rebounds, but that still is not going to put him even near the overall number of best rebounds ever, like the highest number of rebounds ever. That's going to be held by Wilt. I don't know if that record's ever going to be broken with over 22,000 rebounds total by Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know if that record ever gets broken. So Andre Drummond's claims of that, right? I think he can be the best rebounder of a generation. I think that he can be the best rebounder of his time of playing in the NBA. Because I mean, if you really just look at it, there aren't many people. There are some people around him, but there aren't many people that can even be close to that. And considering, how the number of minutes he was playing early in his career, he's not going to get that. So it's going to lessen his chance to really jump up those standings a lot. I do think, and I've said this before, for the Chicago Bulls, his rebounding is going to be key in getting us extra possessions and things like that. It's going to be a big part and a big chunk of what he brings to the Chicago Bulls team and the positive value that he adds to us. But you talk about the best ever. Andre, I hate to say it, you don't really have a chance for it. You don't. He would have had to be a starter. Now, what Andre Drummond was giving at the beginning of his career, if he was a starter and maintained that starting level for another for 10 to 12 years after that, we could be having a different conversation as far as where Andre Drummond ranks amongst the greatest of all time, but even per game, the fact that he is in the top 10, the fact that, he is in the top 50 of rebounds ever. And when you look at it, by the end of his career, he probably will have about 12,000 rebounds, and that would put him in close to the top 15. Like, he has a chance to get there, and that's a hell of a career, but you're not the best ever, brother. And while I like the addition of Andre Drummond, I don't love it. I like it, right? It was a solid pickup to improve our backup center position, but it wasn't kind of the marquee signing that a lot of us hoped. But Drummond, you know me, I got to be realistic. He just doesn't have that to really get to that level, in my opinion. You guys can let me know what you think down below. Do you think Andre Drummond has a chance to go down as the best rebounder ever? It's funny to say, right? It's even funny to ask, because I just when you look at the numbers, right? When you just look at the raw numbers of it, it's just, you just don't have a chance to get there, brother. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move into the second topic for today. This one is about Ayo Dosunmu. So Ayo is a player that I think we know that we have to hope to see a leap from in year 2. Now, he could have a sophomore slump, knock on wood. Let's hope that that's not what happens, but it could be a possibility for that. But looking at that now is that and I did a season prediction for Ayo Dosunmu, so I've broken down some of this, but I want to go over it a little bit more, right? As a starter for him, once Ayo Dosunmu became a starter and moved into that starting lineup on January 15th, he had averages of 11 points, 5.2 assists, and 3.4 rebounds per game on a true shooting percentage of 59.7%. That is excellent. That's not just good. That is excellent. And the work that he's put in the summer, we've seen the way that he's transformed his body. He's poised and ready to go. There are some Bulls fans that even think like Ayo Dosunmu may be lessened because of Goran Dragic. Listen, if they give Goran Dragic minutes over Ayo Dosunmu, that's idiotic. Ayo Dosunmu is poised and ready to go. As long as he performs, as long as he doesn't come in with the sophomore slump, Ayo's prepared to have a big season for us. Now, is he going to be inserted as that starter if Lonzo Ball is not ready to go? That's the question that maintains. He did have a slump, as the whole team did on the back half of the season. Now, he needed to get up his conditioning. The work that he put in this summer, the work that he's put into his body, seems like that's going to be a thing that he's prepared for. He's going to be prepared better for the rigors of an full NBA season. And does that mean starter level minutes? We'll see what that brings for Ayo Dosunmu in this season. But, as much as made about Patrick Williams, and it's huge, right? We do need to see a big uptick from Patrick Williams. It's time. It's his third year. We need to see more from Patrick Williams. We see flashes of it. We see it all summer and what he's been doing with his ball handling and scoring and looking more aggressive. We need to see that in the NBA for Patrick Williams. Ayo Dosunmu, to a lesser degree as well, there were times last season where he did pass up open shots. There were times where he was hesitant to shoot the ball when we probably needed him to take that shot. And, so him coming in there with a little bit more of confidence, a little bit more aggression, a little bit more skill, up in the level, being better, well-conditioned, being able to keep up that defensive intensity as well for the most part of the season, Ayo Dosunmu is poised to have a really big season for the Chicago Bulls if Lonzo's in or if Lonzo's out. The fact that they can play Lonzo at the 1 or the 2 and he can do both effectively, right? Not excel necessarily at playing the 2, but he can be an effective 2 depending on the lineups. You have him out there with other lengthy players and things like that. Ayo Dosunmu and what he can bring, if it is off the bench, can transform this bench. I've said it before, right? And that's kind of what I'm going to focus in leading in here to the beginning of the season, is that what we get from our bench, right? Once everyone is healthy, what we get from our bench is going to be the thing that really transforms this season for the Chicago Bulls. Is going to make it different than last season, is because when you look at the way that the bench is constructed, we have a lot of versatile players on the Chicago Bulls bench. Alex Caruso and what the varying different positions Alex Caruso can guard, Javonte Green and the different things that he showed that he can do last season, and also being an energy player. We'll see on Dalen Terry, right? Dalen Terry's had a great and amazing offseason. Just all the people that he's played basketball with and been around and gotten to soak in their work ethic and see what it takes to do the work in the NBA before he even plays his first game is going to be huge for him to start off training camp as well. But with that being said, Ayo Dosunmu being a part of that bench as well. Derrick Jones Jr., who's also can be versatile. He seemed to fall out of the lineup with Billy Donovan at some point last season after his injury. Never really kind of gotten back to being used the way he was before. Andre Drummond now being there instead of Tristan Thompson and Tony Bradley. And Marco and Marco's offensive versatility could be huge as well. I've said it, and I have a whole video on it. This bench can really be what kind of takes it an uptick for the Chicago Bulls if we can get consistent and not be the 29th ranked bench offense in the league next season. It can really change a lot of things for the Chicago Bulls at that time, but it has to come to fruition. And a big part and a big chunk of that is Ayo Dosunmu in his second year. What is he ready to do? What load is he ready to take? Is he able and now a better equipped and more confident to show that offensive skill set that we saw from him in college? It could be huge for the Chicago Bulls, especially when you look at the games that we have down the stretch, especially when you look at chances of us resting Lonzo Ball, chances of us resting Zach LaVine on back-to-backs, chances of us giving DeMar DeRozan less minutes and things like that. A lot of that is going to be determined by the bench as a whole, not just Ayo Dosunmu, but Ayo is a very key part of that in a contract year, in his second year on top of that in the NBA, which is huge as well, that I think sometimes we miss. Ayo Dosunmu is up for a contract extension at the end of this season. So not to say that he's going to play better just because of that. It's his second year. He's hungry. He's in his hometown. Listen, Ayo Dosunmu is going to come in and give it everything that he can give. But hopefully with that work that he's put in this offseason, what he's able to give is that much more for the Chicago Bulls. And his condition, the guy looks jacked. Him and Cole Kmet must have been working out this offseason because they are ready to go. And I really do think that Ayo Dosunmu is going to be a big part of what the Chicago Bulls do. Now, before we leave, I mentioned this player a little bit before too, is Dalen Terry. I'm really perplexed with Dalen Terry, right? In a positive way, because I don't know how this coaching staff is going to use him. I really did start off, you guys saw it on the draft, not even knowing much about Dalen Terry. But everything I've learned about this kid since he's come into the NBA has just made me more and more excited at the fact that he's playing for my team and for the Chicago Bulls, and he's coming off the bench in a time where he's going to be able to really be that energy spark off the bench if he earns those minutes early. And I want to see that from Dalen Terry. Don't be surprised if we are talking about Dalen Terry much like we did Ayo Dosunmu by the end of the season, just saying, hey, he worked himself into getting more minutes. He started off with a few minutes per game. He started off being that defensive stopper. The offense came along slowly. I think Dalen Terry could have a big season, but it just is going to be determined by how this coaching staff sees him, how he uses him, if he can crack in that lineup. Does he take minutes from Kobe? Does he take minutes from somewhere else? I really am excited about this Bulls bench overall, and that's going to be one of the key things that I'm looking for. On top of like Patrick Williams' increased offensive role, him being more confident on offense, what does this bench rotation look like early in the preseason? Don't be surprised if at my preseason, postseason games, a lot of what I'm talking about are the bench players for the Chicago Bulls. But that is it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think about Andre Drummond's claims? What do you think about Ayo Dosunmu and him being poised to take on a bigger role for the Chicago Bulls, even if it is just off the bench? And how do you think Dalen Terry is going to work out early in the season? Is he going to get minutes for the Chicago Bulls team? Let me know all that down below. Thank you for being the best part of Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave us a text and or voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end everything on, go Bulls. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.